Hello, I'm Joe Monto. You always say my name with first and last name, Joe Monto. It flows. In today's video, we're going to talk about something that I think we can all relate to, no matter how old you are or wherever you're at in your life. And it's the topic of fear. Now, fear is something that we all experience, but it's a difficult topic because it's something that when we fear something, we avoid it. We totally do whatever it takes to avoid it. My fear happened to be fear of flying. And I was thinking the other day, what was it that triggered this fear? And I kind of attributed it to when I was a teenager. I had a nightmare. I was on a plane. I remember it was somewhat quiet on the plane. You could hear talking. It was pretty detailed. And I remember all of a sudden, the plane, there was a loud crash or a boom, and the plane started going straight down. And I woke up in the middle of this nightmare in a night sweat. And I remember just from that day forward, I always had this very, fearful thought of the fact of getting on an airplane. So much so that I avoided flying for many years as a teenager, as a young adult, all the way up until the year 2000 when I met and married my wife. And we were going on our honeymoon. We lived up in Seattle, and we were going from Seattle to Disneyland for our honeymoon. And I hadn't mentioned anything to my new wife about this fear until, well, she figured it out herself. When we got on the plane, we got in the air, I was white-knuckled on this plane, and I don't think I said a word, except for every time the plane bumped or we hit turbulence, minor turbulence, I think, I went, whoa, what was that? Whoa. And I remember just, having all of these just terrorizing thoughts that this plane was going to go down. Again, attributing it over the years to this nightmare that I had when I was a kid. And so the year 2000 was actually the last time I got on an airplane. And sadly, I missed many, many opportunities to fly, real life precious moments. Missed some of those, birth of grandchildren, some trips to go with our church, mission trips or to conferences, and just had a lot of opportunities because I was petrified to get on an airplane. Now, fast forward, I moved here to Las Vegas from Seattle in 2016. And I remember our church, we go on this trip to Israel every other year. And I remember, I believe it was back in 2016, 2017, shortly after we moved here, my pastor saying, hey, love for you to come with us to Israel. And just to back up, it's embarrassing to, and maybe you can relate, it's embarrassing to tell people some of your most, dreadful fears. And for me, it was embarrassing. Here I am, a pastor, I'm supposed to be a man of faith. And yet I really struggled with this fear to the point where I avoided it at all costs. And so here's my pastor asking me to come to Israel, opportunity. Actually, my background, my mom is Jewish. And so being, partial Jew, it's always been a dream of mine to go back to Israel and follow some of my family roots and just to be able to experience, even as a believer, some of those incredible historical spots. But here I was, again, embarrassed to tell my pastor that I was afraid to fly. And so I kind of brought up some other excuses. Oh, my kids are in school. It's during the school year. The list went on and on. And so there was actually a couple of times that the church went to Israel, and he had invited me, and I declined. And until 2019. It was at that point he said, hey, Joe, we're going to go again to Israel. And this time you have got to go. He wasn't really taking no for an answer. And so it was at that point, I was honest with them, and I said, hey, Pastor, I just got to be honest with you. I'm actually afraid to fly. And he said, oh, you can overcome this. And again, when you're in the midst of that fear, there's just no talking you into it. But I remember back in the early 2000s when I lived in Seattle, was talking to a friend of mine. He's now a retired airline pilot. And I remember him telling me about this fear of flying clinic that was based out of San Francisco airport. And he said, hey, back in the 2000s, these guys have a very high success ratio. And so it might be something you want to check out. It wasn't real cheap, but it was, in his mind, well worth it. And so, over the years, I had gone online, when I got a little bit of spark of, hey, maybe it wouldn't be that bad to get on an airplane. So I'd go online, I'd check out this fear of flying clinic. And then the thought of really following through with that petrified me. So I'd click out of the website and just, again, go into avoidance mode. Until 2019, when I'm having this conversation with my pastor about Israel. He wasn't taking no for an answer. So I said, hey, Pastor, what do you think about me? I told him the story. What do you think about me going before, we go to Israel so I can overcome this fear, go into this fear of flying clinic? And he agreed. So I went online. I signed up for the class. The class wasn't until February of 2020. And 2020 is a year I don't think any of us will ever forget. So how the class works is there's 2 consecutive weekends that you go. Saturday, Sunday, one weekend, and then the second weekend you go again Saturday, Sunday. And the graduation is on that second Sunday. Everybody flies from San Francisco Airport up to Portland. We have lunch together, and then we fly back to San Francisco. So I signed up for the class. I'm good to go. The first weekend, afraid to fly. I decide and talk my wife into letting me take the drive. It's a 9-10 hour drive from Las Vegas to San Francisco. Hey, honey, what do you think about me driving my car? She's like, wait a minute, you're in this fear of flying class. What are you, crazy? Get on a plane and go. I'm like, I can't get on a plane yet. I haven't been through the class. So anyway, I drive there, make the drive. A really cool kind of side story. There is a pastor of a affiliated church in the San Francisco area. I reached out to he and his family through the internet. I found his website. Didn't really want to stay in a hotel. I thought, I'm going to make the opportunity. I love talking to people and telling my stories to people. So I reached out to this pastor, and I told him who I was and just shared with him. I think I avoided I'm afraid of flying and I'm going to take this class conversation initially on the phone. But I just said, hey, I'm going to be in town for a class. What do you think about the thought of me coming in? Would you be able to accommodate me? And he's like, yeah, let me talk to my wife. And see what we can do. And so he contacted me a couple days later, and sure enough, he and his wife said, yeah, come and you can stay a couple nights with us, and we'd love to get to meet you. And so anyway, one of the pilots, and actually, let me just say most of the people in this class, the first weekend, they said the same thing over and over again. There was a common theme, and that is, it is safer to fly than it is to drive. They would say that over and over again. And yeah, we've heard that saying before. And again, when you're afraid, like myself, of flying, it's like, yeah, but as incredible as those statistics can be, I would probably be the dude that falls into that category of being the person, 1 in 500 million or whatever the stats were, that would go down with the plane. And so anyway, that's just kind of my thought process. But I experienced that fact. It's safer to fly than it is to drive the first weekend on my way home. That Sunday night class ended at 5 o'clock. And again, I had to drive back. Most everybody else in the class, they were all from the Bay Area. So they went home pretty much to their families in, 15, 20, 30 minutes, whatever. I had to drive 9, 10 hours from 5 o'clock to, 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. So I'm making my way home. It's now 9, 10, 11 o'clock. I'm driving now through the desert in California and then into Nevada. It's now like 12:30. I'm talking to my wife on the phone, telling her about my experience that weekend. And I'm in the middle of the desert, 12:30, pitch black. I start going down kind of the final hill before you start entering and you cross over the Nevada-California state border line. And I'm coming down this steep hill, and it's pitch black. And just talking to her, for some reason, I happen to look down in the road, and I'm the only one on this highway right now. For some reason, I don't see a lot of cars coming in the opposite direction or behind me or in front of me. And I'm driving down this steep road, 70, 75 miles per hour, and something caught my attention. It just happened to be these little, like either skid marks or scrape marks in the road. And this is a true story. I drive up on, barreling at 70, 75 miles per hour, this diesel truck that just flipped over on its side. I'm telling you guys, the lights are completely off in this truck. The axles, the wheels, the bottom of this truck, pitch black, facing me. And somehow I see this pickup truck and I scream out, whoa! And I jerk the wheel. And I cannot tell you till today how this truck was blocking all lanes in my side of the freeway. I can't even tell you how I got on the other side of that truck, other than the only way I can explain it, a supernatural intervention. And I got to tell you, my wife was like, what just happened? I'm like, I can't talk right now. I almost lost my life. I almost just died in a car accident. And then I, kind of regrouped, regathered my thoughts, told her what had happened. And then I said, those people said all weekend long, it is safer to fly than it is to drive. And now I'm a believer. I should have flew. So second weekend, this is the weekend where we have our graduation ceremony. So I was thinking, okay, should I fly? I have a little bit of courage, but, still not quite there yet. Plus, I thought, I'm a pretty sentimental guy. And I thought, how cool would that be for my first flight? I've gone through the first weekend with my classmates. And, despite not really knowing these men and women for very long. In that time, when you're going through something as intense as fear of flying, or whatever your fear is, and you're, with a group of people that are experiencing the same thing that you are, you're all kind of, you feel like, man, I've known this person, or I'm sharing some intimate things with this person on a pretty deep level. And so for me, it was, it was very important for me to save flying on that graduation flight until we all did it together. And so I talked to my wife, and we decided, hey, what about getting on one of those Flix buses? Flixbus transportation was very popular. You saw commercials, and their big thing was how inexpensive it was to travel. And so I talked to my wife, and we decided, hey, well, why don't I take a Flixbus from Las Vegas on up to San Francisco? So she dropped me off, my wife dropped me off at a bus stop in Las Vegas on a Friday morning. I got on the first bus that went from Las Vegas to downtown LA, and got to downtown LA about 10 or 11 at night, and had a couple hour layover in the heart of downtown LA, that's a whole different story. I'll save that for another time. But then got on the second bus from LA to San Francisco, and wow, I don't know where they got that bus driver, but that dude drove like a maniac. It was crazy. I feared for my life, probably scarier than if I flew. He was just a very fast, erratic driver. And here I was in the back of the bus, just holding on, white-knuckled on this bus, thinking, man, am I going to make it to San Francisco? So made it to San Francisco early that Saturday morning. Ironically, dropped us off at the airport, and waited for the class to start. Class starts, all of my classmates, from the first weekend, we all gathered together. Kind of like it was cool, even though it was a week that had passed. Kind of little reunion. Hey, good to see you guys again. So we started our class. Well, that particular day, they brought us up into the air traffic control tower at San Francisco Airport, which was the most incredible experience, one of them, of my life. The view was absolutely fantastic of San Francisco Bay. And then just the thought of, man, I am somewhere where most of the public can't go. And somehow signing up for this class, they gave us all, passes to be able to go up to the air traffic control tower and to talk to the air traffic controllers. And they told us all the different, the technology and all of the different facets of what they do to direct planes in and out of the airport, and just all the fail-safe procedures that they have that really reinforced my, being able to get on an airplane. And some of those, it broke down a lot of those barriers that I had put up. And then another experience we had on that Saturday is we went on to an actual airplane. Now the airplane was on the, different in the maintenance yard. And so they were, they had it parked there. It was out of service. We were able to go on the airplane, walk around the airplane, look at the engines up close. And one of the pilots that was part of the class brought us around and explained to us, how the engines work, how the brakes work, all of those different, the flaps. Even we went on, into the cockpit, got to sit in the pilot's chairs and look at all the instrumentation. I think he was able to turn on the power enough to where he can make the flaps go up and down. And also he had us sit in the passenger seats. I think I chose first class. But he was able to turn on a switch that actually shot the hydraulic fluid through, the various parts of the airplane. Again, that would be kind of a scary sound for someone with a fear of flying. But he just explained that that was a part of the operating process of this airplane. And so just to be able to break those barriers down one by one. Something happened though while we were on that airplane. Again, think back February 2020. We're sitting on the plane, on this airplane. My first time sitting on an airplane in 20 years. And all of a sudden I get a notification on my phone. Kobe Bryant killed in an air traffic collision. Didn't explain any details. That was like the breaking news headline. Kobe Bryant killed, air traffic accident, I think is what it said. I'm looking at this notification in disbelief. Matter of fact, I was in so much disbelief, I interrupted the class. I'm like, excuse me, cut off the pilot. Kobe Bryant was just killed in an air traffic collision. And everybody's going, come on, you got to be kidding me. And I'm like, guys, it's on my phone. So everybody kind of got on their phones and we all confirmed the story that it just happened. Kobe Bryant was killed tragically with his daughter and several other people. Now, as the story, continued to progress and develop, they started to, explaining to the public that it was a helicopter collision. It was in fog, so a lot of different, very, very rare scenarios. And so it wasn't the same as, getting on a commercial airliner. And so anyway, but that was just one more barrier that, I had kind of put up that kind of really challenged, this fear that I was experiencing. So that night went back to, I actually stayed in a hotel that weekend just because, getting up early that Sunday morning to get on the airplane with the class. So I stayed at a hotel close to the airport that night. And if I could back up a little bit, there's another resource that I came across around that same time that wasn't affiliated with the Fear Flying clinic that I was in, but they were very compatible. And a guy named Captain Ron Nielsen, an amazing guy. He has a Fear of Flying clinic as well out of Phoenix, Arizona. And I made contact with him and just, to kind of build up my resources. And so he offered me this package that he has. It's got what's called a harmonizer. And a harmonizer is something that you listen to prior to flying, even during flying, after flying. And it's just a lot of positive reinforcements. It's his voice. It's a couple other personnel that he has on his crew. And it's a lot of positive reinforcements on being okay on a plane. And matter of fact, on this recording, they kind of talk you through, again, that process. You're on a plane. You can hear the sights or hear the sounds. And then, the takeoff mode, and then the in-flight mode. And then they start talking about, now there will be those times of turbulence. And so that night, prior to the graduation ceremony, I'm listening to the harmonizer. I think all night long, pretty much 7-8 hours. I'm listening to this nonstop. That's how intense my fear was. In the morning, just before I, eat breakfast and get ready to go to the airport and meet everyone, I listen to it again. So we get to the airport, and I got to tell you, the butterflies are out of control in my stomach. My anxiety level is, 100. I could tell all of my fellow classmates, you could see everybody's, look on their face. You could see the fear in everybody's eyes. We are all facing that fear that many of us had faced for many years head on. And so we get to board on our airplane. We get on our airplane, and again, if I can back up, in the class, one of the things I really made it a point to let everybody know, which again, it was embarrassing, but I felt like I'm ready to face this head on. And so I want everybody to know. So I explained to everybody, I'm a pastor. And again, that's hard. I'm supposed to be this man of faith. And here I am, disclosing something very intimate and somewhat embarrassing for me, that I have this fear. So now when we're on this airplane on that Sunday, I get on in the seat on my row, and I'm sitting next to a lady that I had met. We really connected and still kind of keep in touch. And then another guy that was very real cool guy that all three of us kind of connected together. And then there was three ladies behind us from our class, and I'll never forget. They were like, "Hey, Pastor Joe." That's the first time they made reference to me as a pastor. "Hey, Pastor Joe." And I turned around in my seat before we took off. And all three of them were in tears. "Can you pray for us?" And guys, it was at that moment that fear was lifted off my shoulders, and I kind of clicked and snapped into this pastor mode, where I was like, this isn't about me anymore. This is about my fellow classmates. And if they're experiencing this incredible fear, I want to do whatever I can to help relieve that. So I'm like, certainly. So, we all grab each other's hands, and I just prayed for us, which was a really cool opportunity, because a few of these ladies, I had no idea where they were even at spiritually, but it was cool because we all connected spiritually right there. So we get on the tarmac, and we take off, and as soon as we get in the air, we're flying over San Francisco Bay. And I remember, being in the air 10,000 feet up right after takeoff, going, why did I fear this for 20 years? This isn't so bad. Wow. Actually, I got an incredible view. I took a couple of pictures of the ocean and the beach, and it was phenomenal. It was an incredible experience. And I remember us being in the air and the whole time, and it's a couple hour flight to Portland from San Francisco, but I remember going, why did I avoid flying so long because of this? Not so bad. And I remember we ended up landing in Portland, and in the airport, we didn't leave the airport. There's several restaurants, and this is a restaurant that the class normally goes to, and we got to order whatever we wanted. I didn't order the steak and lobster. I think I ordered a burger. It was easy on their budget. But over lunch, we all would share what our highlights of the trip was, and our experiences. So again, 20 of us were going around in the circle at over lunch, and the three ladies, it gets to them. Boom, boom, boom. The highlight of their trip, when Pastor Joe prayed for us. That, guys, I can't tell you how much that really touched my heart to hear them share that. My prayer for them was the highlight of their trip. We were able to go around and just celebrate our victories. And, we each got, I believe, a certificate of graduation, and then got on a plane and flew back to Portland. And again, flew back to San Francisco. And then again, it really wasn't a bad experience being on the plane. When we landed in the airport, we all said our goodbyes. Being from Las Vegas, a 10-hour drive, that's when I decided prior to that I would actually take the Flixbus there. But I, purchased a airline ticket to fly back from San Francisco to Las Vegas. So we get to the airport, we're all hugging, saying goodbye, and they're all leaving in their cars. I'm getting on a plane and flying back to Las Vegas. I'll never forget, I get to my gate, and the person, the ticket agent said, "Hey, I want you to know the flight from San Francisco to Las Vegas has been delayed 2 hours due to high winds." I'm thinking, oh, great. Out of all times that I choose to fly, and I'm flying by myself, again, I haven't flown by myself in more than 20 years. I'm going to have to eventually get on an airplane. And who knows, I know by living in Las Vegas that the wind here, the high winds, and it's windy here a lot. Las Vegas is very notorious and known for bumpy flights in and out of Las Vegas in a plane. And so I already had that knowledge, but I'm thinking, oh, great. With these winds, they don't usually just stop. It usually, goes from 50 mile per hour winds to 40 mile per hour for 24 hours. And so I'm thinking, oh, great. It's just going to enhance this whole bumpy ride, 100-fold for me. So I get on the plane. Eventually we get on the plane after 2-hour delay. And, we get in our seats, and the pilot gets on and says, "Hey, sorry for the delay due to the high winds. It's still windy there, and we're going to have a pretty bumpy ride. So make sure that you keep your seatbelts fastened. Matter of fact, we're not going to take that off because it's going to be bumpy most of the way." I'm thinking, oh my goodness, why me, God? But here's the cool thing. Right across the aisle from me was an off-duty pilot and an off-duty flight attendant, back to back. And so we take off, we're in the air. Sure enough, plane ride starts getting pretty bumpy. Matter of fact, the guy sitting next to me, I didn't have the window seat. This guy next to me did. He was asleep when we took off. As soon as the plane started getting bumpy, he kind of shot up real fast and was looking at me. I'm looking at him, and we both glance over to this off-duty pilot and flight attendant. And the whole time, guys, they're on their phones. I think one of them was playing video games. The other was texting. They didn't even think twice. It didn't even frazzle them one bit. They just stayed on their phone, didn't look around. It was just business as usual for them. And so I thought, you know what? If they're okay, I'm okay. And so that kind of kept me somewhat stabilized for the rest of the trip. When we came in for a landing, again, it was pretty bumpy. And I remember the high winds. Our plane was rocking and rolling. But I had that tape played over and over again multiple tapes played over and over again from that fear flying clinic. And what the pilots said, what the flight attendants said, many of them had flown for 30, 40 years. And when we asked them in our Q&A times as class, what was your most intense flight or most turbulent flight? They were pretty much like, never. I think for them, it was just, this is just part of the flying process. And so understanding all of those different elements that I learned in those 2 weekends just really helped me. There's something that I listened to on this harmonizer recording that is played over and over again. And when you're in the midst of the fear, it's hard. You're thinking those real intense, disastrous thoughts, but something that you need tell yourself over and over and over again. And that is, number one, fear. There's an acrostic for fear. False experiences appearing real. So many of our fears, guys, are lies. They're not even real. But somehow they appear real, but they're not. And just because it might appear real doesn't mean that it is. But you need to tell yourself over and over and over again that this too shall pass. This too shall pass. Something that I was challenged with as a pastor, as a Christian. Do I really believe what I say I believe? I have the Bible, I have God's promises, I have, God talking about this life is just a vapor. It will pass. But there's another life that's coming that means far more than we can ever even imagine. Do I believe that? And if so, then why sweat the small stuff? Why go through life and allow these fears to inhibit and to block and to, really cause you not to experience not just important life events, but just life itself and the adventures in life. So oddly enough, right after this trip, this class, and the graduation ceremony and the flight back here to Las Vegas, 2 weeks later, COVID hit. Shut down everything. I waited over 20 years to fly. I finally do this. I successfully go through this class, and the shutdown happens, and our trip to Israel is canceled. It was canceled. I was just baffled, disbelief. Great. I went through this entire, experience to have the Israel trip canceled. But I just kind of laughed. Bottom line, everyone, I just want to encourage you, facing your fears head on, it is scary. It's the most difficult thing that you can ever do. But there's so many resources, and I happen to go out there and proactively look for those resources. Like I said, I didn't put all my chips in one resource. I went online and I did my homework and came across a lot of different very valuable resources. So I just want to encourage you, and when you're in that place, getting on an airplane, yeah, it still causes butterflies. And I, in the midst of those experiences, I don't dwell on the negative experiences. I walk away with the victories and the success stories. And that really builds to your next experience. And so, guys, I just want to encourage you, face your fears head on. Don't allow fear to paralyze you and inhibit you from experiencing life and life to its fullest. And so I'm just so thankful that you're able to sit in and listen to my story. And I look forward to sharing more stories with you here in the future. Hey, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like this video. Feel free to share it with your family and friends. And also leave me a comment and share your experience with me. I read every comment and I would be blessed to hear your story. Have a great day. God bless.